This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
In your mind, you have capacities, you know, to telepath messages through the vast unknown. Please close your eyes and concentrate with every thought you think upon the recitation we're about to sing. Calling occupants of interplanetary craft. Calling occupants of interplanetary most extraordinary craft. Calling occupants of interplanetary craft.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, it's very simple. All you have to do is send it to X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And if you'd like to find out what's going on in the world of the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. My guest this hour is Stan Gordon. We're going to be talking to Stan this hour about the Kecksburg UFO incident, as well as other cases that Stan has worked on. Stan has been researching UFO sightings, Bigfoot encounters, and other mysterious events in Pennsylvania since 1959. Since then, he has been involved in and with the investigation of thousands of unusual events. He is the primary investigator of the 1965 UFO crash incident that occurred near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, and he's been taking calls on UFO sightings and other strange reports from the public since 1969, and he continues to receive unusual reports on a regular basis. His website, stangordon.info. And Stan, welcome back to the X-Zone. Great having you with us.
Thanks for having me back on.
So, Stan, what's new in the world of ufology and Bigfoot in the state of Pennsylvania?
Well, it never ends around here. There's reports coming in here year-round, every year. Last year was very busy with a lot of reports going on, a lot of very interesting UFO reports. And interestingly, in the last few years, I've heard a lot of different researchers talk about the fact that they're not getting a lot of close-range, low-level UFO sightings, but a lot of them are high-altitude or just lights in the sky. But we've been seeing a number of very interesting low-level sightings in the last several years, like the kind of case we used to see back, in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And so I found that pretty fascinating. But then a lot of Bigfoot activity going on right up through last year. We've heard of some reports this year. We're trying to track them down. We have had some other cryptid reports. But once again, there was some very interesting cases in 2016.
What was the most interesting case that you had in 2016, Stan?
Well, there was a lot of different reports. some of the Bigfoot sightings were interesting because they were very, very close range. One sighting occurred down in Westmoreland County, where I'm located, which has a lot of history of Bigfoot sightings going back to, at least the late 1960s that I started investigating, but historically they've been seen long before that around the area. But this was down in the out around Lober, West Newton area, very rural area. And back in the late 1960s, they had what's called the Lober monster. The people reporting this 8-9 foot tall, hairy man-like creature with white hair that was being seen around the area, and they were finding large tracks around the general community. And there have been reports ever since. And it was last year, I believe, April 17th, a woman, and I can tell you, this woman, I interviewed her and her family. She had absolutely no interest in Bigfoot, didn't believe in Bigfoot, didn't watch the TV shows. So that evening, she's riding slowly down what I would call River Road, or parallels along the river down there. And as she's driving slowly down that stretch of the road, it's dark, getting dark, and she sees this tall, dark figure come from the right side of the road and go up onto the road just as she's approaching it. So she slows down, and she's standing right there at the passenger side of the window looking at her. It's a 7-foot-tall, hair-covered creature with luminous, glowing red eyes.
Oh, my gosh.
She said she was never so frightened in her life and gassed the cart out of there and went home and called a relative and told her what happened. And but there's been a history of reports like that. But then on May the 10th, the month later, back in Fayette County is one of the most active areas in Pennsylvania and likely in the country.
Stan, we're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here. I have to take a break. Exonation. Stan Gordon is our special guest, and we're talking about UFOs, Bigfoot, and other strange anomalies and phenomena in the state of Pennsylvania. www.stangordon.info. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hello, I'm Pete Marsh. With my daughter Justina, we will be presenting the new radio show, Too Good to Be True. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But with the help of Justina's amazing gifts, we're going to gain insight into questions that don't yet have complete answers. Have you wondered who built Stonehenge and for what reason? Why are crop circles found in the same region as Stonehenge and elsewhere? Are crop circles a hoax, or are they created with technologies that we have little knowledge of? Who built the pyramids in Egypt and also in other countries? How and why were they built? Was the Titanic switched with the Britannic as part of a gigantic insurance fraud, or for more insidious reasons? What caused the Tunguska event when trees were flattened over an 800 square mile area in Siberia? Will the new insights be too good to be true? Well, that will depend on what you are prepared to believe. Please join us as we start on this journey together. For more information on Too Good to Be True, visit www.xzbn.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Out in the field, farmers grow bread and called for the meat. They took for the shed, then dark came to fall. Silence was all, a beauty shone bright, surrounded by light. Come on now, I fell in love with an alien. I fell in love with their eyes. Fell in love with an alien.
Stan Gordon is our special guest of this hour, Exonation. www.stangordon.info. And Stan, before we went to the break, we were talking about the lady who didn't believe in Bigfoot. She hadn't even seen a Bigfoot show, but going down a nice lane, I think you called it River Road, she had a strange encounter that I don't think she's ever going to forget.
No, I'm pretty certain about that. Even when I had interviewed her, she was still pretty shook up about the incident. And so that was in April. And then in May 10th, up in Fayette County, which is an area that has a lot of history of Bigfoot sightings, other phenomena. The Fayette County is along the Chestnut Ridge. The Chestnut Ridge is one of the most active, anomalistic, active area probably in the country. It's here in Pennsylvania, but it stretches from Preston County, West Virginia, into Westmoreland, Fayette, and Indiana County in southwest PA. Year after year, we receive UFO sightings, Bigfoot encounters with thunderbirds and black panthers and other weird cryptids and mystery booms and all kind of weird phenomena along that ridge. But on May 10th last year, now one of my associate researchers, Jim Brown, investigated this, and this was outside the little town of Fairchance. Mm-hmm. It was a very foggy and rainy night when this occurred, and these two men are riding down this rural road when suddenly this 7-foot-tall, hair-covered creature comes down from the left side of the road from the embankment and runs down in the middle of the road and stands there in front of about 20 feet away. And the driver slams on his brakes, and the two men are staring at this creature. The creature staring back at them. This thing is very tall, hair-covered, and again has luminous, glowing red eyes, the two men indicated. And after a short time, the driver slowly pulled his car forward, and the men felt slight contact with the creature. And at that point, the creature placed its hands on the front of the vehicle with a bumper against its legs, and as soon after, it removed its hands and turned around, started walking down the road and walked into the woods. But so many of the Bigfoot sightings we have in Pennsylvania, they're not like you see on some of the TV shows where you got a shadow of something a half a mile away in the dark. Mm-hmm. Historically, many of the sightings have been many in daylight, and many sightings actually have been at very, very close range. We're talking 5, 10, 15 feet away from witnesses. For example, where they walked out in front of cars, which has been fairly common over the years, They walked near rural homes, near mobile homes, and many people got very good look at these creatures. And in some cases over the years, we had more than one creature seen together, such as 2 and 3 at the same time.
Jim, why do you think there's so much paranormal activity in Pennsylvania?
Well, there's a couple different reasons. Possibly we hear a lot about it. Historically, there's no doubt about it. The Native Americans had records of these encounters with these creatures. Mm-hmm. There's newspapers going back to the 1800s that talk about strange happenings in Pennsylvania, and it's been going on ever since. Now, as you might recall, I started this long ago, and in 1969 I set up a hotline for the public to report UFO sightings. And as word got out about my hotline, I was being inundated with reports of all kind of phenomena, from ghosts and haunted houses to creatures and UFOs, and it became very apparent this was a lot more than I could handle on my own. So I decided to set up a volunteer group of hopefully research people to investigate these reports. So in 1970, I founded the first of 3 organizations. And we would start out small, and then we expanded by 1973 to cover the whole state of Pennsylvania. That first group was the Westmoreland County UFO Study Group, and it was kind of unique in that most of the people involved were specialists. There were scientists, engineers, technicians, police officers, former military intelligence people, all kind of specialists. We were doing this around our full-time jobs. And we were pretty well organized. We were finding this out basically out of our own pockets. But to our surprise, in 1973, we were beginning to get referrals from the news media, the state police, and we were just being inundated with reports. And it was probably one of the only areas in the country where people could report a sighting and somebody would actually investigate it. And that hotline is still active today as it was back in 1969. Calls come in here very commonly. Between that and my website email reports that come in, it's amazing how much goes on, and the public never hears about it. And, of course, one of the main reasons is because even today, especially with cryptid sightings, the majority of witnesses who see these things are very reluctant to publicly talk about it.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's the same thing we've been doing that for years and years. A lot of witnesses are very credible. Police officers call in, educators, lawyers, doctors, people from all walks of life, and they're concerned about their reputation. And they're very reluctant to publicly discuss what they see.
So why do they call in then if they're not willing to go all the way and establish who they are so that the credibility can be attached to the sighting?
Well, I think one of the reasons a lot of people, when they call me, they're first of all, they want to make sure that they were hoping that somebody else in their area may have reported the same thing. They want to know if there's anybody else from the area that's ever seen anything like that. And they just want to realize, that they weren't crazy, that they experienced something. One thing I found is that so many of these witnesses, they have problems even dealing with it years later, because a lot of people wait sometimes months or many, many years to even report something in. And because they're just curious, again, if other people have reported such a thing. And many times they're very happy to find out that a lot of the details they gave me, the locations where the reported has had a history, and many other people have seen something similar.
So with all the research that you've been doing over the years, Jim, Stan, be it with you and the other researchers that donate their time to this very worthwhile cause, what have you found? What have you established?
Well, okay, first of all, I haven't had my group for quite a while. I'm working as an independent researcher, but we did for many, many years have those research teams. And when I'm beginning to find, especially with Bigfoot, and you might maybe recall, I uncovered some of the strangest cases probably ever documented back in the 70s, back in 73 and 74, when we had that massive UFO Bigfoot wave in Pennsylvania. Cases where, reluctantly as I am to say it, that there were very well-documented cases with UFOs and Bigfoot seen together at the same time and place. But since that time, looking at the hundreds of Bigfoot sightings and interviewing hundreds of witnesses, we found some very strange aspects of Bigfoot, which seems to suggest the possibility that with some of these creatures, we may be dealing with something that's other than a flesh and blood animal, which is why there's no bodies.
If it's not flesh and blood, what is it?
Well, we don't have the answers, but one thing I found years ago is that many low-level, close-range UFO encounters and many close-range encounters with Bigfoot and other cryptids they commonly occur in the vicinity of high energy sources. So a lot of sightings occur around high-tension power lines and power plants and gas wells and gas lines, communication towers, railroad tracks, reservoirs, various types of energy sources. I feel for a long time that there's an energy connection to the phenomena. It seems that under certain conditions, and we don't have all the answers, we're just gathering data, that these creatures and maybe certain types of UFOs that come into our physical reality, they can look physically solid, even though in some cases we've had over the years that are not well known, some of these creatures did not appear to be completely physically solid, as observed by some witnesses. They at times can leave physical evidence and they're gone. They come and they go, just like with certain UFO sightings. I can give you one case from last year, in fact, we can talk about, but historically, we've had many UFO sightings seen even in daylight at close range. In some cases, they physically change form in front of eyewitnesses. They suddenly appear and disappear. I felt for quite a while now that we're dealing with a phenomena that's a lot more unusual than a lot of people realize out there, and I'm not so sure anybody really has the answers at this point.
So with all the modern technology that is available to everyone has a high-definition camera in their cell phone. Are we getting any more concrete proof? I mean, good photographs that cannot be denied, that cannot be manipulated, that are 100% legitimate. Are we getting that kind of evidence now with Bigfoot as well as the UFO phenomena?
I do get photographs in, but again, I have a very good associate that's a very good expert in doing analysis, and many of these photographs we can figure out what people were taking pictures of, because lots of times it's technically connected to the digital circuitry of the digital cameras. There's a lot of anomalies out there that can look very strange and unusual, but I can tell you we have had a few interesting pictures, but a lot of them just don't show you enough detail to be sure what they are, such as game cam pictures that people submit. We do get UFO pictures in, but lots of times we're able to determine that, for example, they're Chinese lanterns or something along that line. So you get legitimate photographs in, but in a lot of cases we can determine what they are, and there's very rarely that you get a really good photograph of something that you got to scratch your head and wonder what you're dealing with here.
But how about trace evidence, landing evidence? Radioactive readings. Is there, anything like that? Burn marks in the ground? Something.
Well, that's what we used to get. Back in the 60s and 70s and even the 90s, we had some really interesting cases where there was physical traces, where laboratories examined various traces we had. In fact, over the years, we've actually gotten some very interesting physical anomalies, materials we've recovered. They've all been into the lab. And the cases are interesting, but we're not suggesting that these things are extraterrestrial because the evidence didn't show that. The indication was at some of the sites that there was, I remember one case up in Butler County back in 1990 when people had seen something coming down in a remote area, and later they found multiple large burnt oval-shaped areas, and our team got up there, and they took samples and took photographs and measurements. There was the test indicated there was no accelerants, there was no indication of a hoax, but again, we couldn't say for sure what caused it. Interestingly, and unfortunately I wasn't there that night, but the team was there when coincidentally a UFO appeared over the area like a child stopped hovering and spinning. It was there for several minutes, and 3 different people in the area videotaped this thing. So there were some very good photographs. We got some good still pictures off the video, and there was a lot of analysis done, and that was very intriguing. But, let me say this. In all the years I've been doing this, I have never personally seen a UFO or Bigfoot myself. And I felt for quite a while that there's more than one origin to the unknown category for UFOs, that we're not dealing with just one origin for whatever these things might be.
So if we're not dealing with one origin, are you talking about multiverses? Are you talking about a multidimensional?
Well, I think there's a chance that at least a small number of these could be extraterrestrial. Again, for a lack of a better term, I think we might be doing something that is interdimensional. And again, these things seem to occur, they occur sporadically in a lot of different areas, but there are also some areas, such example is along certain locations along the Chestnut Ridge, where we get more than normal reports. Why, we don't know, and yes, there's a lot of energy sources around there, but these things seem to, again, come into our physical reality at times. Sometimes they look physically solid. Sometimes there's evidence left behind, but they come and they go. And even with some of these cryptid cases, some very interesting reports over the years where there were even searches done, like example for like black panthers, which of course scientifically don't exist in this part of the world.
All right, stand by. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Stan Gordon is our special guest, www.stangordon.info. We'll be back on the other side of this break with Stan talking about UFOs and the Kecksburg incident here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Dreams are our personal gateways into infinite wisdom. Don't miss shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Corcoran's inspiring book, Shamanic Awakening Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles Sandra's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers and her initiations throughout the Americas and across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt. Sandy's knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private tarot readings, international journeys, a meditative CD, as well as her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate this earth walk, creating a deeper connection to yourself and all that is. Find this and more at Sandy's website, starwalkervisions.com.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Nemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created Nemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
home, just a glimpse of your face. I can remember smelling your hair, I'll meet you anywhere, somewhere that no one can retrace, somewhere where no one will know our faces. She has 2 arms to hold me and 4 legs to wrap around me. She's not your typical girlfriend, she's my alien.
Exonation, Stan Gordon is our special guest this hour, www.stangordon.info. Okay, so we've got these multiple sightings of Bigfoot and UFOs, and there's a speculation that they could be interdimensional. Now, during the time of the investigation, are there any energy deviances in readings that are being taken?
I cannot think of any right currently. Now, I can tell you a lot of the better cases were back in the 70s, and so it was kind of limited on what we had. But, you asked about a physical trace case. And
yes.
Let me tell you about probably one of the most spectacular cases that was ever documented on these kind of reports, which was the case that indicated to some of my team members and myself that there was a lot more to Bigfoot than we had any idea of. And this occurred back during this massive wave in 73. This was up in Fayette County, October 25th, 1973. And there were a lot of reports coming in that day from around the state. But that evening, I got a call from a state trooper from the Uniontown State Police Barracks. He wanted me to get a team up to the area as soon as possible. He just had come back from investigating this incident that he believed there could be something still up in the pasture. And what I found out was, and we did send a team up, got there late that night, early morning. We took our radiation equipment, and by the time we got there, if there was any radiation, everything was background normal radiation readings at that time. But about 9 o'clock that night, about 15 people in that rural community, they observed this object hovering about 100 feet off the ground. It's slowly moving downwards, about as big as a barn. It's bright red, like a big red sphere. And 3 fellows, the farmer's son who just came out to visit his dad at his property where this happened, he went up to a neighbor's to get a better view of this thing dropping down, and he and 2 young boys decided they were going to go up in his dad's pasture to see what this thing was. And before they went up in that area, they stopped over to the farm, and he grabbed a 30-06 with a handful of ammunition. And as they're moving down the farm lane in the distance, the dogs are barking, going crazy. They hear this baby crying, whining sound, and this high-pitched noise. And as they get closer to the pasture, the sounds are getting louder, and they walk up to the top of the pasture, and to their amazement, about 250 feet away, this object is on the ground or right above it. And now it looks to be about 100 feet in diameter, but it's a big, white, bright dome that's illuminating the air. It's like a hemisphere. And they're staring there in amazement, looking at this huge object, trying to figure out what this thing is. But then, all of a sudden, their eye is drawn to a barbed wire fence about 75 feet away from them. Along that barbed wire fence are these 2 tall, Bigfoot-type creatures walking one behind the other. The fence post is 6 feet tall. The one in front is about 8 feet tall. The one behind is about 7 feet tall. They're walking upright. They're bipedal. They have long, dark, matted hair hanging off the body. They have no neck. Their arms are so long they're almost down to the ground. They have luminous, glowing green eyes and are making this baby crying, whining noise. They're slowly walking closer to these fellas, and the one boy became very frightened. He ran out of the field. The other 2 are standing there, and the one kid starts yelling at the guy to take a shot, shoot them. And the guy fires his first shot, which turns out to be a tracer. He had 2 tracers. He didn't realize it. So those tracers just give you a luminous trail. He fires that first tracer, but when he fires that second tracer, the largest of the 2 creatures reaches out as though to grab at that tracer. It makes this loud, whining, baby crying sound, and the object in the field disappears. It doesn't take off. It just vanishes. So almost all the sound stops, almost all the luminosity is gone. At that point, the creatures turn around, start walking along that fence back towards the woods where they came from. The guy's firing live ammo from his 30-06 into them. The guy always said to me many times in the interview, he said, I'll never forget how that large creature with those glowing green eyes just kept staring at me as I'm pumping live ammo into it with my 30-06 with no effect on it whatsoever. And the two fellows ran back to the truck. They went home to the farmhouse, told the family what happened, took them to the neighbors, and called the state police. So when the trooper arrives 45 minutes later, they go up into the field in their troop car, and the trooper told me the area where the object was on the ground, or right in that area, was self-luminescent and glowing, about 100 feet or more in diameter. He told me, if I had a newspaper, I could have sat down within that glowing area and read the newspaper from the light coming off it. He said the farm animals wouldn't go anywhere near there. And at that point, they soon went back to the barracks. When they went back to the state police barracks, both the trooper and the witness were interviewed separately. Then they called me to send up a team. And it got odder and odder through the evening of some things that happened out in the field. That was the case that convinced us that there was a lot more of this than we understood. And then we had the case that was probably one of the strangest ever documented that began to give us a clue as to why there's no bodies of Bigfoot. And that occurred in February of 74, way up in the mountains near Ohiopyle. And if you like, I'm glad to tell you that story.
I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so February 6, 1974. I'm sure some of your listeners are going to remember if in the United States because we had a very large national truck strike going on. There was gas rationing. You might recall that. There was a lot of violence on the roads across the country. Back here in Pennsylvania, the state police and the National Guard were patrolling together because of that event, and they both responded to that incident. Now, I got up there early the next morning. My team and I, we couldn't get any gas down the area here, so we couldn't get up there the next morning. But what happened was this woman is deep in the mountains in a little cabin home, was sitting there that evening watching something on television. She always did. Everything was normal. She began to hear this little commotion on her little front porch. She had some cans of pop out there. Someone was knocking the pop cans around. And previously there had been a pack of wild dogs that had passed through the area, and she figured, well, these dogs are probably back. So she thought, you know what, I'll grab my shotgun, I'll just shoot over their head and scare the dogs away. So she loads one chamber of her shotgun, and she makes her way over to the wall switch to turn on the porch light. She does that. She walks to the front door and steps out, and there's no dogs there, but right in front of her, a few feet away, is this very large, hairy, Bigfoot-type creature with its arms straight up over his head. And her response is she fires right into it with her shotgun. She said there was a brilliant flash of light, like a flash you would have on a camera, and the creature just suddenly vanished and disappeared right in front of her. Now, her in-laws lived about 100 feet away. They heard the gunshot, and they called and asked her what she was shooting at. She tried to tell them, and her son-in-law grabs his sidearm, a pistol, and begins to walk up the dark road. He saw a figure running up the road, and he said sometime later as they got closer, he's surrounded by 4 or 5 hairy people with eyes like coals of fire. He started shooting at them and ran into the house, and then they soon noticed this large object with numerous lights on it hovering over the woods at the same time.
Let me ask you, Stan, why does everybody shoot these animals or these things when they're not carrying any weapons? So why would you open fire on something that's not posing a threat to you or carrying a weapon or pointing a weapon at you? To me, that's just plain stupid.
Well, you know, in all the years my teams I went out in the woods, we never carried firearms ourselves with us. And you know, I'm not one of these people that believes in shooting at something that you don't understand.
Yeah, right.
But many people back in those days, and I asked them, why did you shoot them? They just said, we were frightened. Here's something that's not supposed to exist. It's very close to us. And their first response was to shoot. And interestingly, except in some cases like you just heard, some very strange cases where they disappeared, people shot at them, and sometimes the creatures would fall down and get up and generally walk off. They did not appear to be aggressive towards people. Many people said to me, they said, these things, with the agility they have, as fast as they move, they could easily have hurt somebody and caught somebody, but that does not appear to be the case in most of the cases I've looked into.
I just think it's a shame, you know, firing on something, whether it's a human. You know, I'm not a game hunter. You know, I figure if you want to hunt deer, give the deer a weapon as well and make it more even. But to fire on something, that shows how uncivilized we are. And then we wonder why ETs will not make their presence known, because we'd shoot at them.
Well, one thing I want to stress is that, I am not suggesting that Bigfoot is an alien from a spacecraft from another world. We don't know what these things are. I mean, we don't know for sure what these UFOs really are. And again, we might be dealing with more than one origin for whatever these phenomena are. But the fact is, and this is something that I've been aware of since I started writing about this back in the 70s. I've been in touch with researchers throughout the country, throughout the world, and even going back to those days, there were numerous cases all over that researchers knew about with UFOs and Bigfoot were seen. One other aspect that we uncovered early when some of our teams would get out to some of these locations, and you got to remember, back in those days, in the 70s, you didn't have any internet, you didn't have any cell phones. It was a whole different time period.
That's right.
But either the police or my teams or both would get to these scenes very quickly. So we're documenting this stuff as it was occurring. And many times we would have trails of footprints under different ground conditions. And in some cases, those tracks would suddenly stop and disappear when there should have been more tracks. And that's something that continues to be reported even in recent years in fresh snow, where people are seeing series of footprints and they suddenly disappear when there's no other tracks around. And once again, I think we're dealing with something that's far right beyond our understanding right now. But I think we all need to keep an open mind, because one thing I found out was, again, there's a lot of researchers out there that are aware of these reports. But as you're probably aware, many people in the Bigfoot community don't want to associate Bigfoot with UFOs and vice versa. Even though I can tell you in more recent years, I have a lot of people from the Bigfoot community around the country contacting me, and they're beginning to ask the same question. If Bigfoot is a normal flesh and blood animal, why don't we have a body by now? Something just doesn't fit here.
Maybe Bigfoot doesn't exist.
Well, it may not exist in the way that a lot of us think it should exist as an unknown primate, which is what I always thought.
Yeah.
I mean, until I got involved in these cases, believe me, we were not out looking for these cases to occur like this. We weren't out looking for these reports. But when, over so many years, you interview so many people from far-reaching locations who are very credible, many of them very credible people, who are very reluctant to even tell me what they experienced. I mean, I'm dealing with some of these cases right now, and it's just amazing what goes on, and, we just don't have the answers.
Listen, you and I have to take our final break. When we come back, Stan, I'd like to talk to you about the Kecksburg case and see if there's anything new in that. X-Zone Nation, Stan Gordon is our guest, www.stangordon.info. That's stangordon.info. And Stan and I will return on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Love to an alien near Roswell last night. We strolled along together in the pale moonlight. I had a funny feeling that something wasn't right. I made love to an alien last night. When she gripped my hand, I was feeling mighty fine.
Exonation, Stan Gordon is our guest, and if you'd like to find out more about Stan, www.stangordon.info. Stan, can you just give our listeners a brief synopsis about what the Kecksburg case is all about?
Oh, yeah, I can do very brief. We could talk for days about the case, and this year actually marks 52 years of research. I remember the night this was breaking on the news like it happened yesterday. It was a Thursday night, December 9th of 1965. I was 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I already had an interest in UFOs, and I'm listening to one of the big radio station in Pittsburgh, KDKA, and they had a talk radio show. And coincidentally, the guest they had on, which I was listening, was Frank Edwards, whose name I'm sure you'll recognize. And I wanted to hear what Frank Edwards had to say about some of his books.
Sure.
And interestingly, almost the entire program is focusing on this breaking news story of this brilliant fireball that was seen from Ontario, Canada, over Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And there was a lot we didn't know at the time as it was breaking on the news. And I remember that whole evening I'm running back and forth in the living room to the black and white console TV and back to the radio trying to get the latest reports. And whatever that fire object was apparently came in over the greater Pittsburgh area about 4:47 p.m., just as it's getting dark, and multitudes of people reporting this object from across the country, but a lot right in Pittsburgh as it's moving over. So the police and radio and TV stations, newspapers were being jammed with calls coming in. And as the evening went on, it was reported that whatever that object was, it fell into a wooded ravine here in western PA near the Mount Pleasant Township of Kecksburg. And it got much more fascinating that evening when reports were coming in that the military was arriving in that farming community to cordon off the area and search for an unidentified flying object. And it was an amazing night. I stayed up as late as I could to try to hear the latest reports coming in. And I remember the next day I hurried to the local newsstand hoping that it was being the newspaper, and lo and behold, it's the headlines, front page, and all the local papers. And our local paper, the Greenfield Tribune Review, had two editions. The morning edition had Army ropes off area, unidentified flying object falls near Kecksburg. And it went on to say that apparently something did fall into the woods, that no one was being allowed anywhere near the object, that the area was cordoned off on the orders of the U.S. Army and the state police. They are awaiting the arrival of civilian scientists and Army engineers to examine whatever fell. And then, to my surprise, the later edition of the paper had a number of different stories, but the one that really caught my eye was the one that said searchers failed to find object, and went on to say that, yes, there was a search, but nothing was found, and officially people had been mistaken. They had seen a bright meteor in the sky, but nothing had fallen to the ground. Officially, that's how the case remains today. Well, after many, many, many years of research, I've interviewed hundreds of people who were involved in the case. This included many reporters from all over Pittsburgh who were on the scene that night and who witnessed the military presence, and some who interacted with them. Multitudes of other eyewitnesses on the scene. I interviewed military sources. I interviewed state police and their families. And there is no doubt whatsoever that the military came in and recovered the object, whatever it was. So what I found out was that, we didn't know at the time, that some local residents, soon after the object fell, and this object, whatever it was, it's moving relatively slow across the sky. It's making changes in direction along its trajectory. And the people in that area saw it come down that afternoon and said it did not come down at a high rate of speed. It came down almost like it made a controlled landing. And so people who got down into the woods come across this large metallic acorn-shaped object semi-buried in the ground. It's kind of an off-gold bronze color, one solid piece of metal. They saw no weld marks, no rivets, no seams, no fuselage, no windows. On the raised-up back of the acorn, one local witness, he called it the bumper area, he said there were these raised-up markings off the surface that he said looked more like symbols than any type of writing. And luckily, because of his background, he was somewhat familiar with Russian or Cyrillic, and he said that was definitely not what it was. And I know he told me he spent years in libraries looking up ancient languages from what he could recall from memory of what the symbols looked like. And he said closest thing he could recall was ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. So what I found out over the years, in fact, in the summer of 1990, before we did the Unsolved Mysteries TV show on this case, a man contacted me. I did many interviews with him. I was able to check his background, and he told me that he was a member of the Air Force Police, the Air Police. He was a member of the security team that guarded the object from Kecksburg when it came into Lockbourne Air Force Base near Columbus, Ohio, during the early morning hours of December 10th. That has also now been confirmed by other independent witnesses who don't even know each other. What I was told was the military flatbed tractor trailer with the tarped object that left Kecksburg was brought in through an entrance of the base not normally used. They backed it into a hangar. They set up a security perimeter around it, and they were given a shoot-to-kill order to anybody approach that hangar without the proper clearance. Now, this fellow told me he didn't stay on the team that much longer. He heard the truck didn't stay there at that base very long. It continued on to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And later, I was given good information exactly what building the object was taken to. Now, if it's still there, we have no way of knowing. We've heard different stories. We have no way to confirm it. But wherever this object was, for the military to respond the way they did so quickly, there had to have been something very important to our government for them to send armed soldiers. And there were reports from individuals, some who have gone public, who told me that they tried to get down into the woods to see the object. They were stopped by armed soldiers who aimed their weapons at them.
Mm-hmm.
So where did that jurisdiction come from for these soldiers to go on other people's private property and keep other civilians off of that property because they didn't want to get down into the woods that day? It's a long, amazing story. We could talk for days about what we've uncovered about Kecksburg, and there's a lot of very interesting new details we've uncovered in recent years.
Well, so what are the newest details? Was it a Russian satellite?
There have been many, many theories produced on Kecksburg. I mean, the Soviet Cosmos 96 was always one of the key possibilities years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much been eliminated now. Cosmos 96 was a Soviet Venus probe that actually re-entered the Earth's atmosphere at 3:18 a.m. over Canada. And but now a lot of new information has come out in more recent years, and that's pretty much been eliminated. Cosmos 96, the probe itself was only about 3 feet in diameter, as I recall. And again, this object, whatever it was, it made turns in direction, made a slow descent without parachutes, and came down very much intact. The evidence at the scene that they found years later was basically that there was a series of trees knocked down in that area, and right actually in the area where independent witnesses took me down into the woods to the same exact location. And but a couple things we turned up, and there's so much. I realize now, after interviewing numerous witnesses, that there were, in fact, 2 military flatbed tractor trailers at the scene. One went out earlier in the evening. The other one with a tarped object on it left somewhere around 1 o'clock in the morning, then ended up in Ohio. And there's some indication now, and I don't even know if we have time to get into it, but there's some indication that there's a possibility there was someone or something inside that object, what we've gotten now from little interesting bits and pieces from different witnesses.
You know, how many years ago was the 50 years ago?
52 this year, 1965.
Wow. So what is the draw to this mystery? Is it the fact that there could be a government conspiracy, there could be a UFO, there could be an extraterrestrial involved?
Well, it's probably all those things. I mean, there's a huge local and national interest in the case, and even other countries have shown interest in the case. It's very well documented because there's so many witnesses, including reporters, that made national news at the time. So many witnesses saw an object. People saw it in the air. People saw it on the ground. People saw it being hauled away on the military truck. There's military information where it was taken to. The big question has been for years and years, what was this object, and why was the military so quick to respond to recover whatever this thing was? And after 52 years, if it was only some type of recovery of space debris or a meteorite, which is very unlikely from what we know, or something along that line, why after so many years won't they just come clean and tell the public the truth about what they recovered?
Well, why should the government have to tell the public everything?
Well,
if it's a matter of national security, I don't think the public has the right to know.
And I agree. There are some things in national security the public does not have the right to know, but there's a lot of people who were involved in this case, and I know many of these people passed away over the years, and they're always hoping for answers that somebody would at least confirm their story, that they saw and they experienced what they did. And again, we may never know all the facts or the truth about what was recovered that day, and there could be reasons for that.
Exactly. How about radar trackings? Were there any radar trackings of the object?
Officially, it was not tracked on radar. Over the years, various people have told me and given me some pretty good information that it was indeed tracked over a large area. That is why they got the military moving so quickly and into the general area where they thought the thing might come down. So I believe it was being tracked.
How about freedom of information access to any of the reports?
Yes. We did a tremendous number of searches for years and years, and then back, of course, in 2002 when the Sci-Fi Channel and the Coalition for Freedom of Information got involved directly in this case and deeply. There was a lot of Freedom of Information requests done. But of all the reports and all the different cases I filed for in the 80s and since then, the only document that ever showed up was the Air Force Project Blue Book file, and it was not under Kecksburg. It was under Acme, Pennsylvania. And I believe the reason was because I interviewed a family who I know the Air Force man interviewed as well. He was at the home, he interviewed these people. They were involved in the case, but they had an Acme mailing address, which is within walking distance of Kecksburg, and I felt that that's probably the reason why they listed under Acme, not Kecksburg, PA. But the report went on to say that, yes, there was a search, nothing was found, but it had a lot of really interesting information in there, including the fact that a three-man team had been dispatched from the Oakdale radar site in Pittsburgh, and later I tracked down myself and others tracked down some of these Air Force people, said a three-man team was dispatched to Acme, PA, to investigate and pick up an object that started the fire. And it's a very interesting, fascinating case, regardless of what the object was.
Hey, Stan, we've got to say so long for tonight. Let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you and how they can file a report if they're in Pennsylvania. Yeah,
they can contact me through my website, stangordon.info. Email is paufo@comcast.net. And there's always updates and information, events I'll be speaking at. And books are available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
Hey, Stan, take care of yourself and keep the good work up, my man.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Take care, buddy. Exo Nation, once again, if you'd like to get more information about Stan Gordon, if you'd like to file a report, all you need to do is go to Stan's website, www.stangordon.info. Well, I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue delving into the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can always send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. Don't go away.